A knock at midnight. The night was quiet. The cold wind moved through the broken buildings of the old colony. Inside a small steel shelter, one human man was sitting alone, cleaning his weapon. His name was Mason. He was a former soldier. The war between humans and aliens had ended 2 years ago, but the fear was still alive in his heart. He lived far away from the cities, near the ruins of an old mining site. No neighbors, no visitors, just silence. That's how he liked it. He trusted no one. He had seen too much pain, too many lies. But that night, everything changed. There was a knock at the door. It was soft, but not weak. One knock, then another. Mason froze. He picked up his blaster slowly and moved to the door. His finger was on the trigger. No one should be here. Not now. He opened the door a little, just enough to peek outside, and then he saw an alien woman, standing in the freezing night, holding a child in her arms. Her silver-blue skin glowed faintly in the moonlight. She was shaking, not from fear, but from the cold. Her long dress was torn and dirty. Her eyes, large and full of pain, looked straight into Mason's. Behind her, the child peeked out, a little girl, maybe 5 years old, with glowing eyes and thin white hair. Her small arms wrapped tightly around the woman's neck. The woman spoke softly, double quotes, please, We have nowhere else to go, she said, her voice trembling. You're the only one I can trust. Mason didn't answer. He looked around, checking the shadows. Was this a trick? A trap? But something about her eyes, They didn't lie. He lowered his weapon, just a little. Who are you? He asked. My name is Sarai. This is my daughter Ina. We're running. From them? From who? She looked over her shoulder, fear flashing in her eyes. I'll explain, but not out here. Please. She's cold. Mason paused. His brain said no. His heart stayed silent. But his hand moved and opened the door wider. Come in. She entered slowly. Her steps were weak, careful, as if she didn't trust the floor to hold her. The child made no sound, just watched Mason with curious, tired eyes. He closed the door and locked it. Sit near the heater, he said. She nodded and walked toward the corner, where a small heat lamp glowed. She placed her daughter down and wrapped her in a blanket. The girl sighed, her eyes closing. Mason didn't move closer. He stood near his gun table, watching them. You said you're running. Why? Sarai looked up. Her hands were shaking. My husband. He worked for the council. He saw things. Corruption, slavery, secrets. He tried to stop it. They killed him. And they came for me next. And the child, she single quotes, asked ... Different, she has something they want. Something inside her. I don't even understand it fully. But they believe she's dangerous. Mason narrowed his eyes. Why come to me? Because you saved us once. On Tellera 9. You were in the human unit that stopped the bombing. You carried me out when I was hurt. You didn't even know me. He blinked. His memory reached into the past. A burning building. A wounded alien woman. Screaming and smoke. That was you. She nodded. I remembered your name. I searched for you. We've been hiding for weeks. There. Close. Now please. I don't want my daughter to be taken. I'll do anything. Just help us survive. Mason looked at the child. She was sleeping peacefully now. Her tiny hand gripped the edge of the blanket. She looked harmless, but his gut told him there was more. He needed answers. And he needed them fast. He stepped closer. Lift your sleeve, he said. Sarai's face changed. Why do it? She hesitated, then slowly pulled back the sleeve on her left arm. There it was. A black mark burned into her skin. The mark given only to fugitives, criminals, enemies of the state. Mason stared at it. You're marked, I know. I didn't ask for it. I didn't commit any crime. But the council doesn't care. They just want to silence anyone who questions them. Silence filled the room. The heater hummed quietly. Outside, the wind screamed across the wasteland. Mason turned away. He picked up his gun and cleaned it again. His mind was racing. He didn't trust her fully. But the look in her eyes, the way the child clung to her, the way she stood like someone with nothing left. It all felt real. You can stay, he said. But just for tonight. She looked down and whispered, thank you. Mason didn't reply. But he knew one thing. This was not just a visit. This was the beginning of something bigger. And maybe, just maybe, it would change everything. The next morning, Mason opened his eyes to silence. The sun had not fully risen. Pale light touched the metal walls of the shelter. But something was wrong. The air felt heavier. He reached for his blaster and stepped out of his room. The small heater was still glowing. On the floor, Sarai slept in a curled position, arms wrapped tightly around her daughter. Her face was calm now, but dark circles showed how long she had gone without true rest. Mason moved quietly to the table. He sat down and opened his old military datapad. He had questions. Too many if she was marked as a fugitive. There had to be a file in the system. He connected to the old colony satellite. Slow, but still working. He typed in Sarai's name. Processing. Accessing. There it was. Sarai. Status. Marked. Spouse. Commander Talvik. Executed charges. Possession of forbidden data. Aiding rebellion. Escape from custody. Warning. Approach with caution. Subject. May be protecting a high-value alien child. Asset Mason leaned back in his chair. It confirmed everything. She had escaped from government hands. They were chasing her. But what was this high-valued child asset? He looked at the girl, still sleeping. Her small face glowed faintly under the blanket. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful for someone being hunted. Mason stood up and walked to the heater. Wake up, he said quietly. Sarai opened her eyes fast. She pulled her daughter close, ready to flee again. It's okay, Mason said. No one's here, but we need to talk. Sarai nodded. She sat up and gently placed a hand on her daughter's head. Ina didn't stir. I checked your file, Mason said. I know, she replied. I would have done the same. You didn't lie. But there's something else. They think your child is ... dangerous. Sarai looked down. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, in a low voice, she said, she's not dangerous, but she's different. When she was born, she started reacting to things that others couldn't sense. She could feel emotions, hear thoughts. At first, we thought it was a rare gift, but when she touched certain alien machines, they turned on machines no one had used for centuries. Mason stared. She activated ancient tech. Sarai nodded. The council found out. They sent people to study her. They called it protection, but they wanted to control her. Use her for war, for control. And your husband. He tried to expose them. He leaked one report to the neutral colonies. They executed him in front of the other officers. Then came for me. Mason sat back against the wall, his mind spinning. He had heard of strange powers among certain alien bloodlines, but a child who could control tech with her mind. That was something the military would kill for. So why me? He asked. You could have gone to other aliens. Sarai looked into his eyes. Because you are not like the others. You saved me before, and I saw the way you fought. You didn't kill because you hated. You fought because you had to. Mason looked away. The child stirred in her sleep. Her hand moved slightly toward the wall, and then Mason saw it. The small radio panel on the wall flickered on. No one had touched it. No button pressed. It just came to life as her hand moved. He stood up fast. She did that, he said. Yes, Sarai whispered. Mason walked over to the panel and touched it. Nothing happened. She didn't even open her eyes, he muttered. She's connected, Sarai said softly, to something bigger. There was a knock at the door. Mason froze. He reached for his blaster. Another knock. This one louder. He gestured. For Sarai to hide, she lifted Ina in her arms and slipped behind a panel in the back wall. Mason stepped toward the door. Who is it? He shouted. A voice answered. Station patrol. Routine check. Mason didn't believe them. No patrols had come in months. He peeked through the small window. Two figures stood outside, armored weapons on their backs. Their suits had no patrol markings. Bounty hunters. He took a deep breath, opened the door a crack. Morning, one of them said with a smile. We're looking for a woman and child. Alien types. Might have passed this way. Mason raised an eyebrow. Why would I know anything about that? We heard rumors. You live alone. Maybe you saw something. Mason stared into the man's eyes. I saw nothing. The bounty hunter smiled again. Let us look around. Just a minute. Mason tightened his grip on the blaster, hidden behind the door. I said, I saw nothing. A long pause. The man's eyes turned cold. We'll be back, he said. With more friends. They turned and left. Mason closed the door and locked it tight. He turned to Sarai, who stepped out holding her child. They found us, he said. She nodded. I told you ... They won't stop. Mason looked at the sleeping child. For the first time in years, he felt something new. A purpose. Then we won't stop either, he said. We run tonight. A red light blinked on the corner of the ceiling. A silent alarm. They had been marked. Mason grabbed his bag and loaded ammo into his weapon. His heart was beating fast, but his hands stayed calm. Years of war had trained him for moments like this. Sci-Fi stood near the child, wrapping Ina in a thick blanket. The girl's eyes were half open, sensing the danger. She didn't cry. She just stared at Mason, as if reading his mind. "They tracked us?" Sci-Fi asked, her voice quiet. Mason nodded. The bounty hunters outside weren't bluffing. They scanned this place when they knocked. Their ship's orbiting nearby. They'll return with a full team. Sci-Fi held her daughter close. "We have nowhere to go." Mason zipped up his coat and pulled open a floor hatch. "Then we go where no one follows. There's a path through the old ice canyons. Dangerous, but unmonitored." He helped them down the hatch. It led to a tunnel from the old mining days. Cold air hit their faces. As they walked through the darkness, Mason held a dim light. His ears stayed sharp for sounds behind them. The tunnel opened into a wide frozen valley. Jagged rocks cut through the snow like broken teeth. The sky above glowed faintly blue. And then Mason saw it, in the far distance, a shimmer of red. "They're scanning from above," he said. "Orbital drones. They'll find us in minutes." Sci-Fi looked up. "We're exposed out here." Mason nodded. "We need to reach the forest. The canopy can block heat signatures. It's 6 miles north." They ran. Footprints vanished quickly under falling snow. The child shivered in her mother's arms. Sci-Fi's legs moved fast, but she kept glancing back. After half an hour, Mason stopped and pulled out his tracker. "We're close." Suddenly, a loud boom echoed in the sky. They looked up. A burning red beam shot down into the valley, slamming into the ground behind them. A shockwave hit them hard, throwing snow into the air. "They're trying to drive us into a trap," Mason growled. Sci-Fi held Ina tighter. "We have to keep going." Another explosion. This one closer. Mason led them into a narrow cave. Inside, the walls were carved with strange symbols. Ancient markings from the old alien tribes. Sci-Fi paused and touched one of the symbols. "They used to worship here," she whispered. "No time," Mason said. "Keep moving." As they walked deeper, Ina touched the wall. A soft humming began. Blue lights lit up along the cave walls. Mason turned fast. "What did she do?" "I don't know," Sci-Fi said, pulling her daughter back. A hidden panel opened in the stone. Behind it, a small black orb floated in the air. The child stared at it, then whispered something in a language neither adults understood. The orb began to glow. A hologram appeared, a tall alien man with pale eyes and royal robes. Sci-Fi gasped. That's my husband." Mason stepped back, stunned. "What?" The hologram spoke. "If you have found this, then I am gone. And you are running. I created this message for the day they come for her. Our daughter is not a threat. She is a bridge. Between species, between worlds. You must protect her, because they will try to use her gift for war." The hologram faded. The orb dropped into Ina's hands. She held it quietly, looking up at her mother. Sci-Fi's eyes filled with tears. He knew this would happen. Mason looked at her. He knew it all. "And he left a message for you here. That means this cave is connected to something bigger." Before they could say more, the ground shook out outside. Engines roared. Mason rushed to the entrance and peeked out. A patrol craft was landing in the valley. Soldiers were spreading out, their armor glowing with red stripes. "They found us," Mason said. "Time's up." Sci-Fi held Ina tight. "We can't fight them all." "No," Mason said. "But we don't need to. We just need to vanish." They ran through the back of the cave. Mason remembered old maps. Tunnels connected the caves to the forest edge. If they moved fast, they could still make it. Behind them, voices shouted. Lights flickered in the cave. Mason fired 2 shots back to slow the chase. Sci-Fi turned. "We're being followed." "I know," Mason said, leading them down a sharp turn. Suddenly the tunnel opened into a hidden cavern. A small alien vehicle sat in the center long, abandoned but untouched. Its panels glowed faintly. Ina walked to it and placed her hand on the surface. The engine came to life. Mason blinked. "You've got to be kidding me." Sci-Fi helped her into the seat. "This was built by her father's people. She knows how to use it." Mason jumped into the front and started driving. The craft rose off the ground and sped through the exit tunnel just as enemy fire filled the cave behind them. Snow flew past as they reached the forest edge. The trees closed around them, hiding their heat signatures. Safe for now, Mason turned to Sci-Fi. "She just flew us out of a death trap." Sci-Fi looked at her daughter and smiled faintly. She's always been the one leading us, even before she could walk. Mason checked the scanner. No signs of pursuit yet, but they all knew this was only the beginning. The moment they crossed into the forest, the wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped completely. No sound, no breeze, no movement. The trees stood tall like towers, their bark dark and rough, their branches tangled together so tightly that sunlight barely touched the ground. A strange blue mist floated low across the forest floor. The air smelled like rust and old memory. Mason slowed the alien craft and let it glide between two massive tree trunks. "We go on foot from here," he said. "The trees are too thick. If we crash, we won't get out." Sarai nodded and picked up Ina, who was already alert and wide-eyed. The girl looked around as if the forest was whispering to her. Mason shut off the craft and hid it under fallen branches and snow. "We'll need it later. If they find us again, this forest is our last cover." As they walked deeper into the woods, the silence pressed in on them. Not even birds made a sound. No footsteps echoed. Every branch felt like it was watching. "This place is cursed," Mason said under his breath. Sarai turned to him. "No, it's protected. These trees were planted by the ancients. Some say they still guard it, not with weapons, but with memory." Mason frowned. "What does that mean?" Before she could answer, Ina stopped. She placed her small hand on the trunk of a tree. The bark pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. A light shimmered through the grooves, spreading out like veins. Mason stepped back. "She's doing something." Again, Sarai bent down. "Ina, what is it?" The girl looked up. "The tree is sad." Mason blinked. "What?" she said. "The tree remembers when its brothers were burned. It remembers the screams." Sarai's face turned pale. "That means the trees are awake." Mason tightened his grip on his weapon. "I don't like this." They continued forward, and soon they reached an opening, a wide circle of trees, each one with strange carvings that glowed faintly. At the center stood a large stone altar, half buried in moss and snow. "This is a memory ring," Sarai whispered. "My people used to come here to speak with the forest." "Speak with trees?" Mason asked. "With the spirits inside them," she said. "Each tree holds a piece of time, a soul from the past." Ina walked to the altar and sat, quietly, her eyes closed, and for a moment, everything froze. The carvings lit up. The trees began to whisper, not in words, but in thoughts. Mason heard voices in his head. Memories. A cry for help. A scream from a battlefield. A mother calling her child's name. It all hit him at once. He fell to his knees and grabbed his head. "What is this?" Sarai ran to him. "They're showing you their pain, their stories." "I don't want it. You have to understand," she said. "This forest is alive with the souls of those who were hunted, just like us." The whispers stopped. The light faded. Mason sat in the snow, breathing hard. Ina opened her eyes. "They said we must leave by nightfall," she said, "or we'll never leave at all." Sarai looked around. "The spirits protect this place, but only until the sun sets. After that, even they can't stop what hunts the living." Mason stood. "Then we don't wait." They moved fast, following a narrow path through the trees. The map on Mason's scanner was useless. The forest changed constantly, but Ina guided them. At each turn, she paused and listened. "That way," she'd say, "the trees like that path." And Mason, a battle-hardened soldier, followed a 5-year-old through the cursed forest. As the sky darkened above the canopy, something changed in the air. A sound, a clicking, insect-like hiss. Mason raised his blaster. "We're not alone." From behind the trees, tall shadows moved. Not soldiers, something worse. Something worse. Tall alien creatures with bone-like armor and glowing red eyes. They didn't use ships. They didn't use guns. They hunted by smell, by movement, by fear. Sarai gasped. "Soul hunters. They've been awakened." Ina trembled. "They don't listen to the trees. They only eat." Mason grabbed Sarai's arm. "Run." They ran between the trees, but the hunters followed fast. They didn't make noise. They only moved, faster than shadows. A claw slashed through the air, missing Mason's head by inches. He turned and fired. The bolt hit the hunter in the chest, but the creature didn't fall. It hissed louder and kept moving. "Shoot the eyes," Sarai yelled, but Mason aimed again and fired into the glowing red. The creature dropped, screaming as it melted into black dust. "We can't outrun them," Mason shouted. "ENN, stopped." She turned to the largest tree and placed both hands on its base. The ground shook. A ring of light circled around her feet. The hunters stopped. They hissed, stepped back, confused. The tree behind Ina opened, splitting like a door. A hidden tunnel inside the trunk revealed a glowing passage. Inside, Mason shouted. They rushed in. The tree closed behind them. Silence again. They stood inside a glowing hallway deep within the tree, the air warm and full of light. Ina smiled. The forest showed us mercy. Mason looked down at her and whispered, "You saved us again." Sci-Fi touched the wall. "We're standing inside something older than time." Mason nodded. "But outside, the hunt isn't over." And they all knew when they left this forest, the real war would begin. Mason felt cold metal against his back. He opened his eyes slowly. His hands were tied. His blaster was gone. The forest's warm tunnel was no longer around him. Instead, he was sitting inside an old warehouse, made of rusted alien steel. Blue moonlight shone through the broken ceiling. Shadows moved across the walls. And then he saw her. Sci-Fi stood across the room, her wrists also tied. Blood marked the side of her face. Her eyes locked onto Mason's. Behind her, Ina was sleeping on the floor, her arms clutched around the glowing orb her father had left. "What happened?" Mason asked, his throat dry. Sci-Fi shook her head. "We were tricked." A door slid open, and a tall man entered. He was human. Dark coat, sharp boots, clean armor. His eyes were cold. His name was Captain Riker. Mason's jaw clenched. Riker smiled. "Missed me, soldier." They had fought together once. A long time ago. But Riker had chosen profit over honor. He started working with alien bounty hunters after the war, a tracker, a traitor. "I sent out a call for help," Mason said slowly, "but you answered it instead." "Of course," Riker replied. "Your name is still on a few watch lists. When I saw your message pinging off an old satellite, I knew it had to be something big. But I never imagined you'd be carrying an alien child who can light up ancient tech like a Christmas tree." Sci-Fi stepped forward. "You'll hurt her and regret it." Riker laughed. "I'm not here to hurt her. I'm here to sell her." Mason pulled against the ropes. "She's a child, Riker." "She's not just a child," Riker said. "She's a key. Do you even know what that orb she's holding is? It's not just a message. It's a control device. Her father was building a connection to something buried deep. Tech that even her people forgot about." Sci-Fi's voice was firm. "She's not for sale, but everyone has a price," Riker said. "I don't," Mason growled. Riker pulled a knife from his belt. "Good, then you won't mind dying for free." As he stepped forward, Ina stirred. She opened her eyes, blinked at the light, and sat up. Her hand glowed faintly as it touched the orb. The floor began to vibrate. Riker paused. "What's she doing?" Sci-Fi whispered. "She's wakened the memory." The orb rose into the air. Light poured from it, circling the child. Symbols appeared in the air. Alien language. Power pulsing dot. Mason stared. "She's not scared. She never is," Sci-Fi said. The orb flashed once, and then sent out a shockwave that knocked Riker across the room. The ropes around Mason and Sci-Fi burned away like dust. Mason grabbed a pipe and ran toward Riker, swinging it hard. The metal cracked across Riker's shoulder. He shouted in pain and fired his sidearm, but missed. Mason tackled him, slammed his head into the wall, and took back his blaster. Riker dropped to the floor, dazed and groaning. Sci-Fi rushed to Ina, who now stood calmly, her eyes glowing faintly. "She's changed," Sci-Fi whispered. "She's focused," Mason said. "And she just saved us again." A loud noise echoed from outside ships. "They're coming," Mason said. "Reinforcements." Riker laughed weakly from the floor. "You can't run anymore. They'll surround this place in minutes." Mason aimed the blaster at his chest. "Then we'll fight." Sci-Fi looked at the far wall. A symbol had lit up. One Ina had activated without touching. "It's a tunnel," Sci-Fi said. "The forest showed her a path before. Maybe this is the next step." Mason nodded. "Then we take it." He looked at Riker. "You stay here. Let them find you instead." Riker smiled through his pain. "They won't spare me. That's the point," Mason said. He grabbed a power cell and threw it into the fuel tank behind Riker. It would explode in 3 minutes. "Let's go," Mason said. They stepped into the glowing tunnel. The door sealed behind them. As they walked deeper underground, the lights followed them. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber filled with pillars of glass and metal. Alien machines blinked softly, untouched for centuries. Ina walked among them, her hands glowing. "She knows where we're going," Sci-Fi said. Mason watched the girl, his chest tight. "She doesn't just carry memories," he said. She carries a future. Suddenly, lights ahead blinked faster. A message appeared on a large screen, one in both alien and human languages. Welcome, guardian child. Step forward. The core awaits. Mason and Sarai exchanged looks. What is the core? Sarai asked. Mason stared at the glowing door ahead. I don't know, he said, but I think your daughter's meant to wake it. The tunnel shook beneath their feet. Alarms lit up along the walls, flashing red and white. Strange symbols blinked on ancient screens, and a deep humming noise began to rise from somewhere far below. Mason kept his blaster raised. It's waking up. Sarai held Ina's hand tightly. The child's eyes were glowing again, brighter than before. She walked ahead of them, step by step, as if guided by something only she could hear. The metal floor changed beneath them. It became smoother, cleaner, almost new. The old forgotten tech was alive again, responding to Enna's presence. The tunnel opened into a massive dome, a room as tall as a mountain, filled with glowing crystals and floating panels. At the center stood a huge orb, suspended in the air by invisible force. Lightning danced around it in slow waves. Ina walked toward it. Mason stepped forward quickly. Wait, we don't know what that thing does. But Sarai placed a hand on his arm. She's not afraid. She knows. The orb opened. A staircase of light appeared, leading inside. Ina looked back at her mother and Mason. It's okay. It's been waiting. She climbed the steps and disappeared into the orb. The moment she vanished inside, the chamber trembled. Again. Is she in danger? Mason asked. No, Sarai said. This is what she was born for. A voice echoed from the walls, deep and mechanical, yet warm and ancient. Core functions restored. Guardian confirmed. Reboot in progress. Mason looked around. What did she activate? The answer came fast. A huge screen showed a map, not just of the area, but of the entire planet. Red marks blinked across the map, showing battles, damaged zones, and buried tech sites. One location near them was marked with a bright green symbol. Safe refuge. Operational coordinates. Locked. Mason grinned. She found us a way out. But then a sharp beep broke the silence. New red dots appeared on the map, moving fast, converging toward their location. They followed us, Mason said. They're almost here. The orb above closed again, and Ina floated down, her feet gently touching the ground. Her face was calm, but her voice was urgent. We have to go. Now Sarai picked her up. Where is the refuge? It's under the mountain, Ina said. A shelter built by both humans and aliens. Long ago, my father helped design it. Mason checked his scanner. We can reach it if we take the transport tunnel on the lower level. But before they could move, the chamber doors exploded. Flames poured in. Soldiers stepped through the smoke. Weapons ready. Bounty hunters. Mixed alien and human. All armed. All aiming at them. Stay down, Mason shouted, firing first. The room lit up with battle. Sarai ran for cover, holding Ina. Mason moved fast, firing with precision. One hunter fell, then another. But more came. Their armor was strong, their aim deadly. A blast hit the wall near Sarai. She stumbled, shielding Ina with her body. Mason shouted, this way. He hit a glowing panel. A floor tile opened, revealing an escape shaft. Sarai jumped in first. Then Ina. Mason fired 3 last shots before diving after them. The tunnel closed above, just as another explosion shook the chamber. They slid down the smooth metal shaft until it leveled out and opened into a narrow walkway. Lights flickered on, guiding them forward. The sound of the battle faded behind them. Sarai was breathing hard. They'll keep coming. They always do, Mason said. The walkway led into another dome, smaller than the last, but shielded with thick walls. At the center was a platform with control panels and a holographic globe. The system turned on as Ina approached. Refuge access granted. Environmental shield engaged. Defense grid online. Massive doors opened in the back wall. Inside was a hidden base. Warm, clean, and full of supplies. Mason walked inside and looked around. It's real. A shelter, fully stocked. Sarai smiled faintly. He planned this. My husband. He built this place for her. Ina touched the console. The map zoomed out, showing escape routes and safe zones across the continent. We can hide here, she said. For now. Mason turned to her. How long do we have? She looked at him, her small voice clear. Not long. The core sent out a signal. Others felt it. Not just the hunters, others who remember what this tech can do. Good or bad. I don't know, she said. But they're coming. Mason stood at the entrance of the refuge, looking out into the tunnel. Smoke drifted from the vents. The smell of fire was getting closer again. We'll fight if we have to, he said. But this time, we're not just running. He looked back at Sarai and Ina. This is our ground now. The sky above the mountain turned red. Dozens of ships circled the clouds, scanning for heat, for movement, for anything alive. Below them, inside the ancient refuge, Mason stood in front of the blast door, his blaster in hand. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He was done running. Behind him, Sarai was setting up a shield barrier, with help from the old alien tech. Ina sat quietly in front of the central console, the glowing orb beside her. Lights moved across the screen as she whispered to the system in her soft voice. They're landing, Mason said. A full strike team. Sarai looked up. How many? Too many. She walked over to him and placed her hand on his arm. We can't fight them all. I know, Mason said. But maybe we don't have to. Ina turned toward them. The refuge has a defense core. It's old, but it can protect us. I just have to finish waking it. Mason knelt beside her. What happens after that? Ina's voice was calm. It decides if we're worth saving. Outside, the storm began. Missiles hit the shield dome. Blasts lit the snow around the mountain. Alien hunters, human mercenaries, and stolen machines pushed through the snow, looking for a way in. Mason stood on the outer ledge and raised his weapon. Let them try. The first wave came fast. 5 soldiers in black armor, dropping from a low ship. Mason fired. One down. Another tried to flank. But the old defense turret woke up and sent a bolt straight through him. Sarai activated a second shield layer. It pulsed around the structure like a heartbeat. Inside, Ina touched a final panel. A low voice echoed through the base. Defense core active. Guardian confirmed. Begin lockdown protocol. Giant doors around the refuge sealed shut. Energy flowed through every wall. A deep sound shook the ground. The ancient kind of sound that made people feel small. Above the mountain, the attackers paused. Then the real fight began. Hundreds charged toward the mountain, but the earth split open, revealing tall silver towers buried in stone. From those towers, beams of light shot into the air, creating a protective field no weapon could pierce. Mason stared as the enemy fire bounced off the shield like water. You did it, he said, turning to Ina. But Ina wasn't smiling. They're not stopping, she said. They don't care if they die. They want me. Sarai held her close. They won't have you. Never. The lights on the console turned red. A new alert appeared. External lock breached. Emergency decision required. What does that mean? Mason asked. ENNA stepped forward. The core is giving us a choice. To disappear forever. Or to let the world see me. Sarai's voice trembled. If they see you, they'll hunt you again. But if we disappear, Mason said, someone else will be taken. Used. Hurt. Maybe she's not just meant to run. Ina placed her hands on the orb. Her voice didn't shake. I choose to be seen. The refuge lights turned blue. The towers above the mountain opened. A signal burst into the sky. Not a weapon, but a call. A message. A memory. Across the planet, every screen, every signal device, every satellite showed the same image. A child, not just any child, but Ina, standing in the middle of the ancient core, glowing with peace and light. Her voice carried across the systems, soft but clear. I am not your enemy. I am not a weapon. I am a child of both stars and soil. My father wanted peace. My mother gave me strength. And this human gave me something no empire ever did, a family. I choose them, and I choose to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If you come for me, know this. We will not run, not anymore. Silence followed the message. Then, slowly, across the battlefield, soldiers began to lower their weapons. One ship turned away. Then another dot above the mountain. Clouds began to break. Light touched the ground again. Inside the refuge, Mason sat down on the metal floor. His blaster rested beside him. Sarai wrapped her arms around Ina. You changed everything. She whispered. ENN leaned into her. You taught me how. Later, as stars appeared in the sky, Mason stood at the top of the mountain and looked down at the valley. The world wasn't safe yet. But now, it was watching. And for the first time, it had hope. Sarai walked up beside him. You didn't have to stay with us. I know, Mason said. But I chose to. He looked back at Ina, who was now drawing symbols on the floor with glowing dust. Smiling. She called me family, he said. You are. Mason nodded, slowly. Then, from now on, no matter what comes, we fight together. Sirai smiled. Together, and high above them, the stars pulsed softly, as if the universe itself had finally heard their story.